It is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon, on a Wednesday afternoon. Adam a little under the weather
Oh,
yesterday.
I was
The wife
brutal
was in
yesterday.
town. Oh, you were rough, eh?
Yeah.
You were rough on Monday, dude.
Yeah, I know. I know. I felt bad, like, sniffling all the time. Nothing sounds worse in a podcast than every second word is.
Yes.
I was trying to mute myself as much as I could. You were doing a lot of the talking there, but oh, yesterday was a write-off of the day. So glad to be back.
Feeling
In
spry,
shape.
feeling good. Yes, there we go. And
There
getting
you go. Yeah,
Monday
much
morning
better.
mailbag.
Not all the way better, but 90% back. So good enough.
Hey, just getting it done on a Wednesday. This is not new to most of the folks watching. We will every once in a while bump a Tuesday mailbag to the Wednesday, and here we are. All right. You can always reach out to us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. You can drop your comments below on YouTube, or you can get the Patreon bump if you're giving us $4 a month. Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's how this channel stays alive, and you get bonus content. So MLB Mondays every single Monday, you get instant access to all of our interviews, and of course, automatically get into the Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon, sometimes on a Wednesday, and comments and questions read. You get that preferential treatment, if you will. On that, let's roll into
Sorry,
this.
I'm still a little out of it,
You
Scott.
psyched
So
me out, dude. I really thought you were gonna say something. Everyone that's listening on audio is like, "What is happening here?"
yeah,
Anyone watching on YouTube's like, they're feeling for me. I hope because you did. You psyched out. I'm like, he's gonna say something. He's gonna step in here.
the old hamster wheel is turning up here, but not as fast as it should be. So
Right.
I got ideas in my head, and then I don't know how to formulate it into a sentence. So yeah, I
that
just
that
pulled the
cold
plug. I chickened out.
that cold med brain is
Yeah,
an interesting one to deal with. I
yes,
know when
sir.
I was sick there a couple weeks ago, it was the same thing. Just surviving on Benadryl until or Benylin until you can function as a human, and it does
Mm-hmm.
weird things with your brain. So you get a pass on that.
All
We'll
right.
dive in here. We'll start with Twitter. Again, that's at Walk Up Podcast. This is Trevor. He DM'd. He said, Soto bomb. If I ever hear someone tell me pitching and D wins in the playoffs again, my brain will explode. It's part of it, of course. But at the end of the day, power wins, and it's been proven. Since 2010, only two pitchers have been World Series MVPs. Game has changed so much. It's always the guys who are mashing, power, pitching, and D all factor in, obviously, but three-run dogs put up numbers in a hurry and chase arms from games to chew up pens later in a series. I mean, to quote Ross Atkins, that's cherry picking here, buddy. Just cherry picking power. To expand on Trevor's message here, I found a tweet from Sarah Langs, and she kind of put out the same sort of information, but hard stats here. So this is from this postseason. Teams to score first are 23 and 13. Teams to out homer opponents are 19 and 7, 25 and 4 in the playoffs last year. So if you're putting up home runs, your chances of winning far better. 44.3% of home runs are of runs scored have come via home run. It was 40.7% during the regular season. And in the 2023 playoffs, it was 49.1% of all runs came from the long ball. So, to Trevor's point, it wins playoff series. And I do kind of feel like that's what buried the Cleveland Guardians. they had to go deep into their bullpen time and time and time again. And if a team sees a guy in a series more than 3 times, not to just spew stats at y'all for right now, but that's what I'm doing. If they see a reliever more than 3 times in a series, all of a sudden their numbers, they get hit twice as hard.
It's like the third time through the order,
It's like the third time through
but
the
of the
order,
series.
but with a reliever, so it's in the series. Exactly. Which was kind of, I mean, it makes all the
It's
sense in the
like
world.
hitting on steroids, on steroids. Um, you see what I did there?
Yes.
Um, can I play devil's advocate just a little
Please.
tiny bit?
Obviously.
So I hear the like home runs win games and the stats of like, like the teams that out homer are 19 and 1 or whatever. But the other side of that is like, okay, if I have good pitching though,
Yeah.
I'm not giving up homers, right? And everything to do with, oh, it's a bullpen day and the starter got chased early. It's like, okay, well, if you had a better starter, it wouldn't have gotten like he wouldn't have gotten chased, right?
The
Like,
playoffs,
yeah,
the playoffs are a roll of the dice for that, I find. Like
yeah, like
sometimes, I
that's it.
mean,
Like
look
what?
at Jack Flaherty, right? The tale of two pitchers here just in one guy. I mean, he was unhittable for 7 innings one game, and then the next game got blown up. So it's you're facing the
Right.
best in
So
baseball.
you've got guys pitching on short rest who've never pitched on short rest. Age is a factor. I just mean like the Guardians with the memorable game there in game 3, game 4, like when Noel
Yeah,
hit the
game
home
three.
run and
Yeah.
David Fry hit a walk off. Like those aren't guys that put up 35 home runs this year,
No,
right? Like Noel
but they
hit
gave us
13
moments.
this season. David Fry hit 14 this season. Those are guys that hit mistakes that pitchers made, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what the classic line of hitters, right? Is like, oh, I don't hit home runs, I hit mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Like if a pitcher misses his spot, a curveball hangs or a fastball's not where it's supposed to be, those are the balls that go deep, regardless of who's hitting, whether it's Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, or David Fry, those balls are leaving the park. So is it nice when you've got a guy like Juan Soto or Giancarlo Stanton? Yeah, for sure. But again, this is just me playing devil's advocate. Is if your pitching isn't good, if it isn't deep, if it isn't healthy and ready to go, it doesn't matter what scrubs the other team is putting in the batter's box. If you're throwing out Alek Manoah on a bad day, they're taking him deep. Like, so that's my only pushback is like the stat of like, oh, the teams that out homer their opponents 19-1 or win 19 out of 20 games or whatever the stat was he gave. Sorry, again, foggy. It's like, okay, maybe the other way to look at it though is the teams who gave up fewer home runs won 19-1, right? Like that's just the other
True.
side. And I
I think the way he kind of framed it with at the end of the day, power wins and it's been proven. But he's
mm,
also in the same breath says, obviously it's all part of it, right? Like D and defense and pitching. I mean, this is the thing. You
yeah,
look at this, you look at the Yankees and the Dodgers. I mean, they're stacked with power. Both teams are stacked with power. Both teams are stacked with good pitching. Both teams
mhm.
are stacked with good bullpens. And both teams have plenty of good defensive players sprinkled amongst. I mean, that's how
Okay,
you get to
sure.
the
So
World
being a
Series.
great team is
Being
the
a great
secret
team
sauce.
is the
Okay.
secret sauce.
Turns out spending a third of $1 billion is handy.
But I will say, if you're just comparing it to the Blue Jays, obviously the amount of home runs being hit in LA and in New York far surpass anything Toronto did this year. And if you're looking at the stats of what teams win with power, I mean, obviously you got to take pitching into the account, but home runs win games. They do win games,
Yeah, but bats go cold in the playoffs too. Like, I don't know. You just
which is why you want power because cold bats. So it's like at least one good swing of the bat is going to put up a run.
no, but you have a good people either are going to hate this conversation or love it because I'm 100% on the opposite side of that. You give me Blake Snell, who's just wheeling and dealing and is unhittable. I don't care how good your bats are. Like if I'm threading the needle as a pitcher, give me any lineup you want. I'm sitting you all down.
So what how many runs is too many? If they lose 1-0, is that on the pitcher now? Or is
They
that
lose
because
one
somebody
nothing.
hit a solo home run?
Well, no, no, okay. Well, as much as your side of it says, sure, pitching is a part of it. I would also say, as a pro pitching guy, sure, offense is a part of it. Like, we need to score runs.
All my point is
But
here
hey,
is
okay, no,
that
no, no,
if
no.
the
Hold on, hold
bats
on, hold
go
on, hold on.
cold,
No, 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 no. Hold on. If I'm the pitcher and I go 9 innings and I give up one run and we lose 1-0, you know what that tells me? Your team had better pitching. Your team went 9 innings and didn't give up a run. That's even more impressive.
or
So you beat me
or
with
they had
pitching.
worse hitting, or they had worse hitting. Like if you give up, you're going to blame the pitchers for one run in nine
I,
innings.
I would say every hitter at the major league level can hit a home run, can put it out. If your pitching staff threw 150 pitches today and not one of them was hittable, that's a fucking good outing.
Okay, so give me the example then.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
In these playoffs, who is the team that power has been nice, but it's not a big part of it, but it's been pitching and defense that has gotten them to the promised land?
I don't know. The Dodgers and Yankees. How's that?
I don't know, man. I mean, they've done nothing but hit bombs. Like both teams have been very power heavy. I get what you're saying. I didn't take this comment as like really shitting on pitching and defense as much as just like shitting
I
on
know,
Ross
because there's that
Atkins.
little tiny asterisk to get him off the hook of saying, I know pitching is a part of it. I'm not trying to shit on Trevor. I'm just trying to shit on Trevor's comment. Like, and for sure, I am also of the mind that, like, yes, give me a team with elite pitching and power. Sure. The same way he's like, give me elite power and some pitching. I just,
I guess where I'm at, dude, is if you need to pick between slightly above average pitching and a good bullpen and defense and a team that hits power, or a team that is more small ball orientated and elite pitching and elite defense, I'm taking the one with slightly above average pitching, a good bullpen and power. Because, like you said, hitting goes cold sometimes. And stringing together 3 hits in a row to score 1 run is very difficult, especially in the playoffs, especially with the caliber of pitching. But if you can
um,
just run into one mistake, that's a run.
well, I'll say this. Are you familiar with someone who some bozos were saying should win the MVP over Shohei Ohtani this year? You've heard of Shohei Ohtani?
Right.
Francisco Lindor,
Yes.
we acknowledge is a great hitter.
Yes.
33 home runs, OPS plus 138. You've heard of Pete Alonso,
Yes.
forever home run king, champion of the Derby, right? Um, the Dodgers shut them out twice in the ALCS. That's good pitching, right? Like, would you not acknowledge that, like, Sure, the Dodgers also put up 8 and 9 runs in those games, but they didn't need to. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's not like the New York Mets were the Chicago White Sox and like were trying to gadget their way through the game and just had a power outage. The Mets are a good hitting team. They've
Yeah,
got power. Nobody on the
it's how
Dodgers
they got there.
in those 18 innings in specific gave up 0 runs.
I
So
mean, the Mets
of the
won full
four
playoff
wins,
series on the back of power in this playoffs.
um, so the Dodgers' path to the World Series. I'm just going to list their wins. Okay, I
Yeah.
acknowledge like losses are losses. Of their wins, 7-5 against the Padres. Okay, 8-0 against the Padres, 2-0
Mhm.
against the Padres, 9-0 against the Mets, 8-0 against the Mets, 10-2 against the Mets, and 10 to
Yeah.
5 against the Mets. So 7 wins, 5 of them were either 2 runs or shutouts. I would say that's pretty good
Oh,
pitching.
you're not counting their offense. How many runs did their offense
Yeah, no,
get
the
them up?
offense was good. They didn't need it. I'm just no. The offensive argument is if they win 13-11, you go, oh, thank God we had some bangers because this was an offensive powerhouse matchup and we had to outshoot out the other team. That's the argument for offense is, hey, good thing we have Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton so that we could keep hitting home run after home run, 3 run shot after 3 run shot to keep pace. When you win 10-0, you didn't need that. It was a luxury.
I just don't think there's an example of a team who has gotten where they are on pitching and defense as
I just
much
gave
as
it to
they
you.
got there as a well-rounded team. I don't know. I just disagree. I completely
Yeah, that's
disagree.
fair.
I mean,
That's fair.
it's totally fine. I get what you're saying. I get your point, but I'm like
I'm
ignoring all
not.
the offense they put up is
No. I'm not the one that made this comment in the first place. I
no, no,
am
no.
literally playing devil's advocate. So I'm the whole like they didn't get there on the back of pitching, and let's just ignore their offense. The irony in this is that that's literally what we're doing in the reverse by saying, oh, they got here with Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts, and we're ignoring the fact that their pitchers shut out their opponents half of the time. A shutout. Half of their wins are a shutout. And we're not going to acknowledge that, oh yeah, pitching was also a pretty big part of that.
Well,
I didn't
I
start the
didn't
conversation.
well, I didn't
No,
take it
don't
as
shoot me.
we were ignoring the pitching. I just of all the ways to score runs, power gets it done in the quickest way, one swing of the bat.
Well, you're just now just talking about the problem with baseball in general. True outcomes, right? 3 true outcomes: strike, walk, and home run.
All right. Drop your comments below.
Yep.
We'll get to this later. Maybe next mailbag, we'll dive into what you folks think. Obviously, you can reach out with your comments or drop them right here on YouTube. Matt Hickey DM'd us. He says, question for the next mailbag. With all the young guns that showed flashes this season for the Blue Jays, which ones are you comfortable trading to improve the team, and which ones would you want to keep?
All of them and none of them. How's that for an answer?
Yeah, it's weird. I was going to say the same thing. I'm like, I'm pretty much comfortable trading all of them, and I'd be fine with. I mean, obviously, there's some good talent that has been acquired at the deadline. We watched what Will Wagner can do. Joey Loperfido has some upside to him. I think that we watched Spencer Horwitz really develop throughout the season and exceed expectations after his call up. I would love to see Ernie Clement in a Blue Jays uniform still as the utility guy. Where does Davis Schneider fit? Where does I mean the list goes on and on. I don't think there's an untouchable in this lineup. outside of Vladdy, personally.
Um, so you're taking a more genuine approach to this comment, which I appreciate. A more sincere effort being made.
Right.
I'm more of a sarcastic shit. Um, like the problem with a question like this is like, okay, well, what's the return, right? Like, is
Oh,
there an
for sure.
like? Okay, I will say that in the past there have been, yep, quote unquote, young guys that I have felt like, okay, no matter what, how hilarious is this? We don't trade Alec Manoa.
Yes.
We we don't have a player like that right now. And it's a combination of we don't have a player with that high of ceiling because of Tiedemann's injury concerns, right? His inability to really put it together and stay working.
Hmm.
And then the pissing hot of Elvis Martinez, right? Like there's some real concerns there, which I think are justified with the PED test. So if you had asked me 12 months ago, either of those guys might have been on my list of like, oh, like the future looks bright with these two. Can't really move on. But yeah, now I'm saying, okay, I'd listen on any of those guys. The whole list, I think, like you said, other than Vladdy, is you listen to phone calls. There's nobody that you go, nope, Ernie Clement is he's our guy. We're not getting rid of him.
When I say
Now,
Vladdy's untouchable too, I mean in the lip service of this front office wanting to contend next year, moving Vladdy makes no sense. Now, if things change and the
mhm,
direction of this organization changes and a rebuild is on the horizon, and it has already been established that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will not re-up with the Toronto Blue Jays, that Bo Bichette will not re-up with the Toronto Blue Jays, then obviously everything I just said goes out the window and you've got to reevaluate, right?
yeah,
But in this
totally.
idea of contending next season, yeah, I mean, you use your assets to bring in people that are going to fill some holes.
Um, Now, to your credit, giving a sincere answer, interpreting this in a enthusiastic way instead of a frustrated the Blue Jays suck kind of way. What are some names of guys that you specifically are still generally like high on, enthusiastic about, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
the
So
best way to look at it.
I would say so, and I think that Will Wagner has some real value, and that he has, despite a very small sample size, has looked fine. I think Spencer Horwitz has some value and looked really good in the time that he was with the Blue Jays. I just don't think any of these guys really have, um, like top prospect value, or like, you know,
Mhm.
I I mean,
No,
what kind of
it's
value does Davis Schneider have? Like, this is the thing. All of these guys, I think, have value in a package type of deal where they are one of numerous
mhm.
long shots.
Yeah, you
But
buy a bunch of lottery tickets and hope one works, right?
exactly. So, like, does Davis Schneider, friend of the show and fan favorite in Toronto, have any real value for a one for one type of idea? Probably not all that much. You know, you might get a prospect or something for him from a team that thinks that they can fix his swing and pay a guy $800,000 a year for the next 3 years who can be a league average player. There might be a team out there that thinks that, right? But like, I think where Will Wagner and Joey Loperfido and Ernie Clement and Addison Barger and like where all these guys have value is in some sort of package deal.
Right, right. Um, I'm not as high on Will Wagner.
because of sample size.
I, because of the Kevin Biggio of it all, and the Espinal of it all. Like I'm just kind of out on a guy who I love Will Wagner as a dude. Came on the show, very generous with his time, several occasions. But from maybe he's the platoon second base slash third baseman in 2 years. That's not like a guy, if that's his ceiling, kind of don't want anything to do with. Like, not that I don't want anything to do with him, but I do not want to be any sort of like protection mode on a guy like that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
The other thing with Will Wagner is he is Spencer Horowitz. Like they are incredibly comparable in all of their skill sets. They're both guys who hit doubles. They're both dudes
Lefty,
who are lefties and play second
first
base
base and second,
for, like positionally not all that versatile. And I would love to eat my words on it. Honestly, like, if Will Wagner is the guy that they decide that they're going to move forward with and they're shedding a bunch of these other guys off, and he's the one that's being given an opportunity to at least play as a utility guy, let alone maybe full-time second base. I would love it if he
Oof.
puts up 25, puts up 15
Sure.
bombs, 25 doubles,
Yeah, yeah.
790 OPS. Like, give it to me. That would be amazing,
Sure.
right? But
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think of all the young guys, we are 2 or 3 years away from one of them being in the Espinal role, and it's going to be the worst one of them. And I think that's my preferred outcome. Like I mean, just when we talk, okay, there's the Spencer Horowitz, the Ernie Clements, the Addison Bargers, the Will Wagners. Like we got 10 of these guys. The most valuable ones are going to leave via trade or like dealings. Hopefully, again, best case scenario, because we're getting a good return. It's a package. We're shipping off George Springer's contract, whatever. And then the guy that's left to fill the Espinal Biggio role, the 26th man that can hit for a 230 average and play a couple positions for us, is just going to be it's going to be the last man standing. So I don't really want to get excited about any of those guys for that reason.
mm-hmm.
The two at the top, Elvis and Tiedemann, have their concerns. I'm going to say two names that we haven't mentioned yet that I would say are still very much tradable this offseason, but I have more like high end enthusiasm for. The first one is friend of the show, Damiano Parmigiani,
Yes.
has shown real power recently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to contribute in 2025, but he could be a guy that plays third base and hits 25, 30 home runs for us. I think that's what his ceiling is potentially. Like Matt Chapman with not as good a defense.
Yeah.
But I know Matt Chapman didn't ever give us 30 home runs, but he flirted with it. Like the potential was always there. When he put it together, the ball was fucking going 500 feet, it felt like
Yeah.
Matt Chapman just couldn't make contact enough to really utilize his power. But I think Matt Chapman does have power. Um, so that's my first guy. My second guy is a guy we traded for this year, part of the Yusei Kikuchi trade, and Jake Bloss.
Yes.
By all accounts, he was the top pitching prospect in Houston for whatever that's worth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the scouting report on him is good. He's a big guy. The potential there, again, you still need a lot to go right developmentally, but he's a guy that I think could be like our number 5 starter next year. Like if he has a good off season, stays healthy, comes into spring training, and is just, a year older and a year more mature and has everything together. I'm not saying let's plan for him to be our number 5, but he's a guy that I think could like come in, sneaky compete, and be like, oh, Bowden Francis, who? We got Jake Bloss, and I think the potential on him is a surprising starter very quick, like very soon, if things go right. Again, but that's with all prospects. So that's just my
I
two genuine guys that I would feel kind of disappointed if they got traded. Again, depending on
I
who comes back, of course.
I do like this question because it does really re-emphasize how crowded our infield is. Like you start forgetting about guys like Leo Jimenez, where you're like, oh yeah, where does he fit in now that Bo Bichette is
Oh,
back, right? You got
mhm,
Spencer Horwitz and Will Wagner, who again, very, very redundant with their skill sets, and they both play second base. Will Wagner plays a better second base than him. Horowitz does play some first, but I
mhm,
mean, you're kind of logjam there with Vladdy. And then you got Ernie Clement, Gold Glover at third base. You got Addison Barger, who plays third base and some outfield. Like it gets pretty crowded, and it does make me wonder how many of these guys. Because you kind of touched on it, where you're like, it could be our least favorite guy who just winds up in the utility role by the end of it because he probably had the least value on the open market and still had
right.
enough value to
Stick
keep
around at all.
below you're paying a guy minimum wage. You got to think about the
Yeah.
budget and stuff, right? You need some guys like that. So maybe
Hmm.
it is a dude like, I don't know, maybe it is a dude like Leo Jimenez that we didn't really spend much time talking about, and the rest of the guys have
Yeah.
kind of been shed off. Ernie Clement, I know I was asked on Twitter by somebody, does he have value? And it's like, yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. Does he have, like, would it be a wild blockbuster trade? No.
Hmm.
But he absolutely is a guy that I think could tip a deal over the top, right? Especially if you're
Yeah.
talking teams like in Oakland, where a versatile guy that can, you know, play a multitude of positions, do it defensively very well, and also put the ball in play a lot. I know they're not playing in Oakland Coliseum anymore, which was a
Hmm.
hitter friendly park, but all right, we'll move on.
Yeah. That's kind of it. Sorry, I got derailed. I'm reading when I was looking up the Yusei Kikuchi trade,
Yeah.
just because the parallel I wanted to draw was like the prospects that Houston gave up for Yusei Kikuchi, right? It was like a combo pack. No, nobody was really like a blow us out of the water type, but like Kikuchi, a legitimate starting pitcher is what they got back
Hmm.
in return, right? So they gave us 3 prospects in Loperfido, Jake Bloss, and then here's where I got derailed was Will Wagner.
Yeah.
Did he just come over in that trade?
Yeah.
I feel like he's okay. In my mind, he's just been with the team longer. Did we just, he got traded and then before he left Houston, hopped on a Zoom call with us?
No, we've never had Will on the show.
What? Why is,
Yeah.
man, okay, sorry. This is head cold fog, guys. This is, I think I referred to him as friend of the show.
Well, I missed that. I would have
Oh,
corrected you.
okay. Well, fuck
Maybe
that
it
guy
was
then.
maybe it was just like I was talking David Schneider, and maybe that
Maybe.
was just the
And Spencer Horowitz, and I just lumped him into that group and just
yeah,
assumed
that's
because
right.
he's exactly the type of guy that would come on our show. Um,
Absolutely.
okay, well then there you go. But anyways, in that case, yes, the any of these prospects that we do trade away could potentially be a 4th starter in return,
Hmm.
whatever, as a package deal. To your point, sorry for that. Ugh. Happy Halloween.
We're gonna get through it, buddy.
Yeah,
Hang in there. All
I thought
right.
Joel was supposed to be here by now.
Yeah. Shocking
Uh,
that his balcony inspection took longer than he thought. Uh,
I like that he sent us a picture of the
just
notice
so
he
that we
got,
didn't
just so
think he's lying.
we didn't think
Yeah.
he was bailing again. He's like,
Yeah.
seriously, guys, I swear. That's so funny.
So Jesse reached out, just sticking with Twitter here. Hey guys, love the show. Hoping to get on mailbag this week. Shane Farrell, amateur scouting director for the Jays, has left the organization to be the farm director of the Detroit Tigers. What does this mean? I
Mm.
mean, he was offered obviously a position that he wanted more or was ready for a change. Who knows what exactly
Pay
that
raise or
means?
whatever. Yeah.
Pay raise. Maybe he's just sick of operating in a collaborative environment such as the Toronto Blue Jays. Who knows?
What
Tough to
was the
tell,
name
but
of this guy?
Shane Farrell. So he has been the farm director or director of amateur scouting with the Blue Jays for years now. Some of you might remember John Farrell, former manager for the Blue
Mm-hmm.
Jays, who, you know, came over and everyone was all excited about and then left 1 year after his arrival, saying that he has the opportunity to go to his dream job in Boston.
Oh.
Had to take it, which is rare to see someone do a sideways jump like that. Normally, if you're the manager of a team, you're not even given permission to go. And
Mm-hmm.
that was why Anthopoulos brought back John Gibbons, right? Is that he felt he'd gotten snake bit and he wanted somebody he could trust. And so Gibby came back, and I mean, good. Wound up going to the ALCS twice in a row in 2015-16. I bring up John Farrell because Shane Farrell is the son. And I know a lot of people like to point to nepotism, call him
Mm-hmm.
a Nepo baby, something that the Blue Jays are known for. But Shane Farrell had an interesting track record. And I know that a lot of people would like to shit on him because the farm system is not in great shape right now. He did do a few nice things. Austin Martin did wind up getting the Blue Jays Jose Barrios, although Austin Martin also was traded at the perfect time, just as they started to see maybe some of the warts that they didn't see when
Mm-hmm.
they drafted him.
That'll happen.
It'll happen. It's tough to look at guys like Arjun Namala and judge right now at 19 years old. Like there are some
Just
real
turned 19 this week, by
just
the way.
turned 19. Yeah. So there's some gems in the system that I think you can point to Shane Farrell, although I will say when one of the biggest downfalls of your organization, one of your Achilles heels is scouting and development, and you're the head of amateur scouting, some of this has got to fall at his feet. So I think not only is it an opportunity that he took with Detroit, but maybe he saw the writing on the wall, right? We did just watch the Blue Jays get rid of their pitching development guy in the minor leagues recently.
Yep.
We've watched them move some of their organizational pieces around. We're
Hitting coach
watching
gone too, isn't it?
hitting coach has been
New hitting
hired.
coach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
new hitting coach. The dude, he was with the Twins back in 2023. Of course, his name escapes me here, but I know that you're doing a quick Google here to pull him up. What did you think of this? Is out of left field. I don't know. Did you see Whit Merrifield talking hitting coaches on Foul Territory?
David Popkins, by the way. And no, I
Hopkins,
didn't.
right. So Whit came out and was like, anyone who blames hitting coaches for anything has a grave misunderstanding of the game of baseball in
Yep.
2024. And I kind of feel that way too. I mean, these guys all have like six hitting coaches, their personal coach and their
An
vacation
uncle
coach,
and
and
a
yeah,
yeah.
an Uncle Wilton, and yeah, exactly. So
Yeah. It's to do a butchered food analogy, no pun intended. It's like if you had six chefs all working on the same pot of chili. And it's like you just hope three guys aren't all adding the chili pepper.
mhm.
It's I don't know. I always go back to uh, Anthony Telford when we had him on all the time, and watching his like restrained frustration of how the Blue Jays were over coaching Nate Pearson. It's like,
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think most of these athletes, I mean, we kind of talked it off the top with like everyone at major league level can hit a home run, right? Like some are better at it than others,
Yeah.
obviously. But
Some are
like
much
what
better.
got the what got them there was some level of like natural talent, hand-eye coordination, and musculoskeletal. That was a tough one to get through. Musculoskeletal uh, composition that just fucking works good. Like it's
Hmm.
just your body is just designed to be Aaron Judge. You're just guess what? A power hitter, Like you're not a gymnast, Aaron. You're gonna play baseball instead. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think there's just a level of that to like the hitting coaches and whatever is like, no, like you're a fucking big league hitter. You are what you are. Good luck. Hopefully you stay healthy, you know, keep your head good. I don't know. I don't know. It is hilarious to me though that like how much grief Guillermo Martinez got and
Yeah.
like all of the blame. And it's like
Yeah.
it's his fault. And for some reason, so does uh
Donnie.
Donnie Baseball. Yeah. Don Mattingly. Like I don't know what the issue is with him. Just because
Guillermo
he came in
Martinez,
while the team was on the downslope. Is that what it
I
was?
think that's what it is his arrival in 2023 coincides with the complete shift in ideals of this organization and
Right.
putting it all into defense and pitching.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right. So it's
Guillermo
Don Mattingly.
Martinez is a
It's their
confusing one
fault
to me.
that Dalton Varsho isn't producing as much offense as Teoscar Hernandez was. Okay, it's the coach's fault. Got it. All
Well, Guillermo
right.
Martinez is a weird one just because he was also the hitting coach in 2021 when they were the hardest, like,
Bombers.
yeah,
Yeah.
when they were literally led the entire league in home runs. I mean, philosophically, this organization did undergo a huge shift, and so it is partly on the coaches. It's also sometimes coaches just follow what the boss wants them to do, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
all
Yeah,
right,
okay, Joel said he'll be here in 5, so he'll join us for
okay.
the tail end of mailbag here, and then we'll talk the TV show.
Daryl DM'd us on Twitter. Holy shit, boys, what happened to your Guardians? You actually talked me into thinking they could beat the Yankees. Ha ha.
He didn't have enough home run power.
They did not
Or
have
was
enough home run power. I was
or
going to
was it
say that.
or
Yeah.
was it the pitching?
So I
I
did talk
remember
to.
you complaining about the pitching a couple times
Oh,
in
yeah, their
that
starting pitching wasn't good
series.
enough.
Who are they
Absolutely, their
starting
starting
today?
pitching.
There's no
There's
chance they have with this guy on the mound.
Yeah, no, their starting pitching wasn't good enough. But this is an interesting stat from Sarah Langs. She says over the last six postseasons, batters are slashing 276 with 3.42 on base percentage and a 488 slug with 20 home runs and 465 plate appearances when facing a reliever for the third time or more in a series. So uh, that is literally what happened to Cleveland. I mean,
Yeah.
how many times can you strut out Cade Smith? Turns out every single game, the guy was a stud, and it did start to catch up to the Guardians. And I mean, we basically spent our entire Friday show last week talking about Emmanuel Clase and his fall from grace.
Hey, you know what though? If there's one silver lining for the Guardians, it's that Clase pitched in that final game and didn't implode in the whatever. It was the 8th inning that he came in
Yeah, yeah,
and he faced Aaron Judge, like he faced
yeah,
the heart of the order, and he did what he was supposed to do. So again, that was on short rest. That was after pitching in high leverage back-to-back games. He came in for a third. Like he was when he should have been his most vulnerable, and he performed when he needed to. It sucks the first two times he didn't, but I mean
yes,
that's something at least to like go into the off season being like, okay, I got that monkey off my back a little bit because if he had have imploded for a third time or not
Yeah.
gotten a third chance and just had those two ugly ones, and then
Then he gets to
oh,
sit on it for
that's
3 months until spring
yeah,
training. Yeah.
right. So like that's one positive out of that elimination game. So like, okay, we got Class A in a high leverage situation, and he was good. This is something to rebuild on. So
That's right, folks. He's not known as Adam Silver Lining Mac for nothing.
hey, you know what? Uh, a breakdown and a breakthrough both start the same way.
There you go.
So
Going to Patreon. So again, if
okay.
you are a Patreon member, tip of the hat. Thank you very much. Channel couldn't run without you, and you automatically get your questions and comments in. We do have a few from Patreon today. Colin White wrote in, "You're right about the bullshit blackouts. I've also said I'd pay a bit extra for MLB.TV so they could cut Sportsnet whatever supposed lost ad revenue I represent. Sadly, the VPN for blackout free MLB.TV doesn't work for anymore. So I pay tribute to the Sportsnet gods for now." There were actually a few Patreon members. We talked about this on MLB Mondays. Just the fact that Rob Manfred came out and said that they are planning or thinking of eliminating blackouts in the next couple of years as more and more of their organizations are bundled together for national television
Mm-hmm.
rights. Yeah, the VPN, it stopped working for me too. I'm like, it's the playoffs. They've got you. Like they let you pretend you're wherever you are in the regular season, and then they get you. It's just damn it all. Uh, Going to Philip, he says, regarding the playoffs the last 2 seasons, I just thought to myself how absolutely ridiculous it is to count how many Blue Jays players from the 2022 team have been in the 2023 and 2024 playoffs. Of course, there's the whole Gurriel Jr. and Moreno fiasco from last year's World Series, and now Teoscar Hernandez is in this year's World Series.
So is
Adam and
Kiermaier.
Scott and Kiermaier, that's right. Adam and Scott. Do you guys actually like Mark Shapiro? LOL question mark. I know you guys had him on as a guest before. Sometimes I don't know who's responsible for this mess. Is it really Ross Atkins or is it Mark Shapiro? After all, in 2015, when this regime took office, Jeff Blair said when referencing why it didn't work out between Anthopoulos and Shapiro, Mark Shapiro likes to put his fingers in every pie. Sometimes I think he's pulling all the strings here and he protects Ross Atkins and his job because in actuality, he's not responsible for this mess. It's all just a big facade and a big fucking charade. Um, so I will say this. We
Mm-hmm.
are internally grateful for the president of baseball operations of the Toronto Blue Jays, Mark Shapiro, coming on the show. He gave us 30 minutes. And if you folks know anything about the presidents of major corporations, 30 minutes of their time is worth far more than anything Adam and I should be given. All right. So we do really appreciate that Mark made the time to come on our little podcast.
Uh,
Um,
can I point out a timeline that is not necessarily cause and effect, but is factually accurate? And correct me where I'm wrong here, okay? We used to have all the Sportsnet guys on
yes,
frequently,
yes,
like half a dozen times a year for several years.
yes,
We had Davidi, Arden, Ben Nicholson Smith, Wagner, Barker, you name it. We had them all
yep,
on. And then we had Shapiro on. And then you asked him about Moneyball.
yes,
And in your question, acknowledged you probably hate hearing this, but you asked it anyways.
yes.
And now, after that has happened, we are no longer allowed, like it is contractually prevented from us having Sportsnet employees on the podcast. And we are
There's more hoops
blacklisted.
for them to jump through. They will still come on, but there are far more
Have we
hoops for
had
them.
any since?
No.
that email has been sent out to us that, hey, sorry, there's a bunch of red tape and hoops. Again, I'm
Yeah.
just saying these are just the facts. And we may or may not be blacklisted at the Rogers Center.
Well, we are. I
So, okay, there you go. So by name, Scott Belford and Adam Mack blacklisted at the Rogers Center as far as media credentials go. We can
as
still
far
go
as
as
media
fans.
credentials.
They'll take
Yes.
our money
They'll
as
take our
fans.
money.
We can buy their hot dogs, their loony dogs. But as far as media credentials go, after you asked Shapiro about Moneyball, they were like, strike them from the record. Now, again, I can't say cause and effect. I'm just stating a timeline here.
It does
We
also
used to have a great
coincide.
relationship. Then we asked about Moneyball to Mark Shapiro. He
Yes.
didn't like it.
He
And now
hated
we
it.
have no relationship at all. So,
Uh,
so there you go,
yeah.
guys. Those are all facts. This is not
This
an
is
exaggeration.
this may
This
all
is
be
pure
on me.
fact.
This may all be on me.
Yeah.
It does also coincide with the team becoming worse and worse. And we definitely don't give the same love and support to the front office that maybe we did back in 2021. I know that that has changed a lot. We really all thought that they were
I
on the
have
right
been
path.
photoshopping Shapiro and Atkins' faces into less flattering movie posters year after
Yes.
year. So they
Continuity
used to
is an
be the
iceberg,
cover
buddy.
of Top Gun. Now they're the cover of Titanic. So yeah, it's
So I mean, just to answer Philip's question, I don't I don't know. Do I think that this is all Mark Shapiro's fault? I mean, if you had to pick one guy, I guess, like he is the president
top
of
guy.
baseball operations. He did put
Yeah.
all of this together. Um, but that's the thing when continuity is an iceberg, is that sometimes the collaboration, everyone's at fault, but nobody's at fault, which is something we've brought up a few times that feels
Mhm.
like they get some wiggle room as their positions held don't really mean anything. And we were watching them shuffle these guys around the front office right now, right? Like, I
I mean, is is Shapiro micromanaging to that level? I am curious if he is in his like Dr. Evil chair, petting his cat, watching the game, and then has like a switchboard and he can just click and be like, John Schneider, you're pulling out Barrios. We're going to the bullpen now. And then it
yeah,
just happens. Like, I don't know. We'll never know.
we'll
It's
never know.
but
It's
I
impossible to
don't I
know.
don't quite think it's at that level, but I do think there is somewhere in the middle of him being a tinkerer. I think he tinkers more than
Maybe most presidents do.
yeah.
Okay, moving on. Mish commented about the gold gloves.
Amish.
She says, either make it about the fucking stats or open it up to public voting. And I kind of like that sentiment. It's like either make it not matter at all and let's make it the All-Star game where we just can vote in our favorite defensive player, or go by the stats. Because the way they're doing it now, it's like this weird medium of like, yes, the stats matter, but also all the managers are voting on it. And this all came up because we were talking Alejandro Kirk and brought up Chris Black's thread, basically breaking down that he is, if not the best defensive catcher in baseball, a top two guy, and to not get a gold glove nomination was definitely a bit of a snub. And we were asking and posing the question as to why. A lot of you feel body type plays into it. A lot of you feel the market plays into it. A lot of you just were like, it's baseball. They're always making stupid fucking rules or stupid decisions. So,
Yeah.
uh,
On
okay.
YouTube, sorry, on the idea of the gold gloves, eShep71 commented on the YouTube side and just said Vladdy won a gold glove with a negative D WAR that year. So I'm not sure what to think about it.
Yeah.
And like it's a yeah, it's a broken award
Yeah.
from top to bottom. It's the process is all kind of broken.
Metal Manic is our last Patreon before we get into YouTube comments, and Joel just showed up. So we're going to quickly do this one, and then we'll let Joel in for the YouTube comment section here. Metal Manic messaged about the Tampa Bay Rays possibly playing at Oakland Coliseum, and all his comment was the Oakland Rays. And if you're going to make a pun, I'm going to put you in mailbag. So there you go. All right, so we are going to go to YouTube here for the last couple comments. We
Okay.
always appreciate everyone getting their comments and questions in. You can always reach out on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast, and just drop your comments below. Joel LaFlemme joins the show. Hello, good sir. How you doing, buddy? You got your look at. I did I know you were a Four Eyes? Have I? Or are these new glasses? You're always a Four Eyes.
He's always been a Four Eyes. He might
New
be a
glasses,
contact
though.
guy. Undercover Four Eyes.
Yeah, kind
Oh,
of. They
holy shit, he's Superman. He could do it.
Yeah.
a bluish tinge to them, so they're somewhat
Oh.
Blue Jays, right? It's like
Or somewhat Dodgers. We know how you feel about Shohei.
don't we all feel something showing?
All
Um,
right, Joel. We are going to get to the writing section of this shortly, but you've kind of just under the wire for the last few questions here, a mailbag. So feel free to voice your thoughts and opinions on this. We're starting with Chucharu, who says the Rooker back-to-back seasons are going to really make him expensive in this market for hitters. Add to that control, and you're paying your top prospects for this guy. Even if the Jays want him, I think other teams will offer more. P.S. Tampa Bay fans don't matter. Do they even have 5,000 fans on a daily basis, anyways? Would love to see Oakland fans get something positive. So, this is last episode, Joel. We were talking about would Brent Rooker be of value and worth chasing as a guy for this Blue Jays team in 2025? We also were talking about how the possibility of the Rays playing in Oakland has become pretty substantial with
Hilarious.
Tropicana not being usable until
A
possibly
long time.
2027. Yeah. So, why don't we start with you here, Joel? Give a little fresh perspective here to everyone watching. Brent Rooker, how do you feel about him as an option for the Blue Jays on both a power standpoint and fitting into the outfield? And do you think the Blue Jays have the assets to get a deal like that done?
I think we have the assets to get a deal like that done, but what we'll have after that is you're not going to really be calling up too many players internally, hoping that they can have a substantial effect on the team because
Oh, so we can't have 15 players from the Buffalo Bisons play with us next year.
that may be the case, but may not be the case that they're having the effect on a winning ball club the way you want them to. But I think we have what it takes to get him, but it's pretty much everything we got. Uh, I like getting 28, 29-year-old players out of Oakland. We have a track record for doing
We
that.
do.
We usually find some success in that. He's a big power guy, and whatever power numbers he's putting up in Oakland will only increase if he comes to Toronto. So the
Hmm.
a little bit extra that you're spending may come with even more production, especially if he's
Mm-hmm.
situated in a lineup where he's sitting behind Guerrero. That could be, it could be great for him, uh, not for a winning standpoint, but to kind of maintain the success he's had. So when he does get to free agency, potentially he's worth more. It sure was the case for Josh Donaldson. So yeah, I think that's a potential move, but we need offense. We need somebody to galvanize that middle of the lineup. So
Do you
wherever it
think
comes,
Rooker would be enough to do that? One of the reasons that we brought up Rooker was that with Oakland now playing their games in Sacramento in a AAA ballpark where the revenue that they're going to be making off of live baseball is going to be almost none. Not that they were raking in money at the Oakland Coliseum with the fan base basically boycotting them that last season. But with that being said, they're probably not in Las Vegas until 2028. So it is reasonable to see that organization viewing that as when they want to at least start to compete more heavily. So does Brent Rooker really fall into the timeline? He sort of doesn't. And on top of that, with Ricky Tiedemann getting Tommy John surgery and probably not being ready to pitch for the Blue Jays until 2026, and all the question marks surrounding Aroldis Martinez after his PED suspensions, I wonder if those two top prospects still have value in the eyes of the Oakland Athletics, and if maybe the timing of it all, we could pry Rooker out just because they're not so worried about what they're getting back to be impactful right this moment.
I have to agree with that.
All right. All
There you
right.
go.
Okay, moving on here. E Shep 71 says, "You guys are so much more level-headed than some others on YouTube. Not everyone loves Atkins, but it's nice to hear ideas and solutions without them being littered with anti-Atkins narrative. Losing is part of this game, and the biggest acquisition we can get are rebounds from Swanson, Bo, Manoah, and Springer, as well as a return for Romano. All of these guys are all-stars who disappeared. Nothing to do with Atkins' ability to build a team. Their plan to hold out for Soto wasn't supposed to look so bad, but we still had the pieces to make a competitive run." So, first of all, thank you, eShep. I'm glad that you enjoy that and feel that way. Secondly, it's hilarious because we also get a ton of comments saying how negative we are and and how everyone's tired of how much we shit on Atkins and Shapiro. So somehow we're riding this fence where we're pissing off everyone. So that's great. Joel, what do you think about just the idea of internal improvements? Obviously, Bo can't get any worse than he was last year, right? Like, we're going to see a better Bo Bichette.
Oh, of course. And I think they're trying to solve these issues by getting a new hitting coach and try to dive into stuff that's going on internally because the decline, it's such an interesting narrative to see the decline offensively from teams, but then Vladdy was on that same decline, but then switch was flipped, a haircut was made, a mentality changed, and then all of a sudden success was right where you wanted it to be for him. So it just goes to show that these changes can come at any moment, and something just needs to come and galvanize a mindset. And yeah, the best thing that the team can do is find those standard back of the baseball card seasons that these players are supposed to be putting up, and that's the best improvement that we're going to be able to make, is everybody kind of returning to form. Will that happen? We'll see. I really hope that, like you said, there's no way that Bo Bichette can be that bad again. And
so let's go through the names eShep brought up. Eric Swanson. Do you expect improvements from this year? I kind of feel the same way about Eric Swanson as I do Bo Bichette. It's like he can't get any worse.
he came into last season, that was a really rough start with what had
Oh,
happened. And so yeah, that's mentally he wasn't in the right place to pitch probably for some time, and then the body's obviously going to follow wherever the mind goes.
yeah.
So hopefully he's able to have a solid off season and come in this season fresh. Just
Adam, do you still believe in Eric Swanson?
I don't know. I think bullpen's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
It's sometimes you got it and then your career's over. And sometimes you're useless and then you're the best reliever we have. I don't know. I give me quantity over quality with every bullpen arm except for the closer. Like, give me an elite closer and then 15 competent options and hope that 7 of them turn out to be like putting it together for a pretty good year.
Now, Mr. Mack, I already know how you feel about George Springer and his trajectory
Love
and
him.
whether he can salvage
Hmm.
any bit of this contract. For those of you who aren't aware, Adam does not feel that George Springer will improve next year, and in fact has voiced pretty regularly that he thinks the best thing the Blue Jays can do is package him up in any way, form, or fashion possible, get that money off the books, and use
What's the
it.
opposite of a spring? I mean, like blocker, Ricker, anchor. What are we
Yeah,
gonna start calling him? He's dead
yeah.
weight on this team.
The opposite of a sale. Yeah. So Joel, that I am curious where you're at then on George Springer. Are you as negative on him as Adam is, or do you think that there is a
Okay,
world
let me
where
just say this one quick sentence. The way we all feel about Bo Bichette can't have a worse season, it has to be better, is how I feel about George Anchor in the opposite direction. I go, there's no way he's as good as he was last year.
which was not great.
Joel, continue.
Um, his approach to the plate is always been all or nothing, and as soon as that falls off, there's it's such a steep decline when you're hunting fastballs and all of a sudden you're not getting to them. And what's your game look like after that moment? There's so much physicality in his swing, if that makes sense. It's not a
Hmm.
smooth and easy free swing the way Teo's is or Justin Turner's swing is, which kind of like suggests that they're, you can see why Turner has been offensively talented to 40, right? It's a very smooth swing. The mechanics behind it aren't so
Does
jarring.
that give you any pause on Bo Bichette? Because Bo Bichette is also a very violent swinger. Like, just as far as like a long-term career trajectory, do you think Bo Bichette offensively is going to age well or like
I think
George
Bo,
Anchor?
I think Bose will age better just simply because he's got the two strike swing. He's got
Yeah.
the two strike approach, which is not that swing.
Yeah.
He's got a swing in his bag that is a swing that is more level, more smooth, more contact based.
So once he's 33, we just see the two strike approach
At
at the
least,
one strike mark.
at
Like
least he knows it.
his first swing is all or nothing, and then he goes, okay, let's just fucking try and get on here. You think
Yeah, at
that's
least you know that that first swing can be notched down. Effort and do or die in that swing. That's where it is right now because he wants to jump on no strikes, one strike. And those counts, he wants to be as aggressive as possible. Two strikes, he wants to have his two-strike swing, which is very rare in this day and age of baseball.
Mhm.
It's like the only one who truly does it. But I think that bodes better because George Springer on two strikes swings the exact same way he does when he has no strikes. So at least you know in Bo that there is already a mechanical change that he can make.
Mhm. That's fair.
The aggressiveness isn't playing out the way that he wants it to.
So the last guy mentioned was Alek Manoah, and obviously Manoah underwent that kind of a the easy, not easiest is the wrong way of putting it, but the shortest rehab Tommy John. It's where it's kind of like a half Tommy John, where it's like 8 months is basically the rehab, and he's expected to be back sometime around June, July, ready to pitch. Any hope coming off of this surgery that he can give the Toronto Blue Jays anything in 2025?
Go first.
Anyone, go ahead. Like,
I think it's a situation where when he comes back, you'll be seeing what you probably saw to Walker Bueller to come back.
right.
Not magical, not exactly himself. I still think that you have this surgery, you can come back, you can do whatever he ends up doing next season. I think that another off season will get him back to probably the place that he wants to be. I think he'll be pitching this year. Will he be at max effectiveness? I don't know. I haven't seen too many of the bracing surgeries, so I don't know how quickly the recovery. I don't know. Maybe the bracing surgery can come back and you're firing bullets right away. But usually with the long-term one, there is that, there's that atrophy that goes on. That arm isn't quite as effective as it was in the very beginning, and then it can be more effective, right? We've seen cases where it's more effective once the surgery is fully healed from and you've done your rehab. But I think usually you come back and you're struggling to find the strike zone. You're struggling to find your effectiveness, who you
Is
are.
that is that a triple A? Like, is that a minor league season then for 2025 in that case? Like, if he is working his way through recovery while actively pitching, is that something that we limp through with him at the major league level, burn another year of control with pretty disappointing numbers in hopes that he can be good, but by the time he's good, he's not going to be cheap anymore? Or do we just bury him in the minors and deal with the tantrums of it all? Or do you think he's just over it, like over the tantrums? And he's like, okay, I'm fucking not thrilled with how my career has gone so far, but can't argue with Tommy John recovery. It is what it is. How do you want to see the Blue Jays handle Manoah in 2025?
I think you want to see as much of him on the major league roster as possible, just
Yeah.
because we're going to need an arm.
Can
Yeah.
you do something with your mic? You're super quiet, Joel.
It's that.
Was he quiet on your end, Scott, or is that
Yeah,
just
he's
me?
quiet on my end too. There was a reply to this comment from at Jays Talk 89. He said, I turned from a Atkins should be fired guy, still think he should have been, to an Atkins apologist purely because of how crazy negative some of the fan base is towards the guy. He didn't do a good job in 23 off season, but that doesn't erase the fact he's made a lot of good moves too. I call this the reverse Nickelback, right? Where now there's so much hate on who everyone used to,
Yeah.
people are getting back on board with Atkins because of all the hate.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm not quite there, but
I mean, the
I
truth is, any organization, like if you're a general manager at Major League Baseball level, for the most part, you probably have made a good move or two.
yeah.
I do blame where this team is right now on Atkins. Or at least Atkins and Shapiro obviously were part of the philosophical flip from being an offensive juggernaut to pitching and defense. I mean, it went worse than they were planning, obviously.
Sound better?
Sounds better.
Yeah.
A little bit. I have a question. This does relate back to Atkins and the job he's done. Shohei Ohtani's contract. Do we know whose idea that structure was? Was that a creative
Shohei's.
Dodgers idea, or was that Shohei's? Okay,
That was
so he would
Shohei's
have.
idea.
So he would have brought the same creative structure to the Blue Jays, assuming.
And that was what was reported on, is that the same offer was made to all the teams that were interested.
Okay.
So he was prepared to defer a large chunk of his salary wherever he went.
Okay.
But
just wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, going
Dodgers, Yankees. You guys are both Dodgers rooters right now.
Yeah.
I think I've gone full Yankees.
You're insane. I
I hate
that
it
so much.
Why do we hate the Yankees? Question. Why do we hate the Yankees so much? Because they buy their teams?
No, the pinstripes. It's in me. I've hated them my
It's
whole
just the
life.
visual effect of pinstripes?
No, it's just anything.
I mean, there's the AL East rivalry that I don't like of it all, right? But it's always been, they've been the most annoying because they've spent so much money to try and win, like to try and buy a championship. And that's what the Dodgers are doing now. So I just don't think it's any I don't think the Dodgers should get a pass on that. And if the Yankees win, then I still only have one team to hate. Like as soon as the Dodgers win the World Series this year, I have to hate them equally as hard as I hate the Yankees, and I would just rather not have to do that. Right now,
I
I
just
only medium hate them.
out of sight, out of mind. I mean, they're an NL team. I could care less about the Dodgers. Everyone makes a big
Dodgers, out
deal
of
about
sight,
it.
out of
Big fucking
mind.
deal. Like go there, do their little
I
thing
don't
over
know.
there on the West Coast.
Dodgers
It's fine.
fans are pretty insufferable too. As much as Yankees fans are bad, Dodgers fans are pretty insufferable too. And more
Not
Dodgers
even
hats are popping up in Edmonton these days. So it's I don't know if that's
Yankees
Shohei's fault or
fans.
what, but
I hate so much you even brought this up. Like there's actually any sort of choice here. No, the Yankees are easily the worst. They have always been the worst. I will never forgive them for their 3 World Series in a row in the 90s where they were the most insufferable fan base and the most insufferable fucking team. I hate the Yankees.
yeah.
And I can't
Okay.
shift hate.
Well,
I can't shift hate.
we're
Like,
but Scott, that feeling you have of
yeah,
the 90s Yankees,
yes.
we're like 4 years away from that with the Dodgers. This is just year one of the Dodgers winning 4 World Series in a row, being insufferable fans with a $1 trillion payroll. Like, I
In the
just don't
National
want a
League.
second
I don't
villain
even,
in my life, Scott. I just don't want a second villain is the thing.
and
I'm
that's
happy
why
with Two-Face. I don't need the Joker as well. Just give me one team to fucking hate with all my passion, and I don't want that passionate hatred split 2 ways. That's not no.
I don't know.
The Dodgers could continue to
Everything
be
you
the
just
team.
said made me like the Dodgers even more. If it's
It's
upsetting Yankees fans that I like the Dodgers, I will love the Dodgers.
look. It's the same way I feel about the Mets. Is like the Mets. They're a New York team. They're pinstripes. They spend a shit ton of money, but they always fall just short of the promised land. So there is that kind of like, oh, I'm sympathetic. Like, oh, like we were kind of rooting for the Mets this year, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, this kind of Cinderella team. They spent $300 million this year. Cinderella, what? Right? And it's kind of like that with the Dodgers. It's like they could still be that like, oh, they haven't won a World Series in forever. Asterisk 2020. However you feel about that, I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's a World Series, but I can see where people are gripey. Anyways. But once they start fucking knocking them out, man, it's gonna be like, oh my God, and the Shohei of it all, and Joel's gonna be the worst Dodgers fan I know, because he's gonna be like, hey Oscar, World Series MVP, used to be our guy. What did I say?
You know what?
Shohei Ohtani, the
You
Dodgers, that
conv-
contract's paid for itself,
you
and he's gonna be
convinced
fucking
me.
right, and I'm gonna hate every second of it.
I'm fully on board with the Dodgers now. And I also forgot how much Yankees fans hate Shohei Ohtani, and I just love that so much. So give me the Dodgers. Give me my beautiful unicorn. Keep putting up when he's going to bat 3 times, three
Right,
players
three
away,
bats till we
six
see him.
players
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
away. Keep rubbing it in New York's face. I have no ill will against the Dodgers. I've never disliked the Dodgers.
You will. You will.
Maybe National League team. I don't get worked up
I'm
about the National
I'm
League.
clipping this. I'm gonna replay this in 2027 when the Dodgers are 3 World Series in a row and the worst fan base in sports. We're gonna replay this.
All
And
right.
look at Joel's fucking smirk right now. He's so happy.
All right.
I'm in a place where I know this is probably the standard basic answer that you're hearing, but I'd love a great World Series. There's a part of me that's able to just disconnect.
You're like, as long as it goes 7, you're thrilled.
I want some sort of 7 games, some sort of drama, some sort of like, oh, game 4 was the greatest baseball game of all time. And then it came down to game 7, and it was this clutch moment by some heroic superstar player. Like, I need the game
Shohei
to,
Ohtani just pitches on the bullpen day. He just comes in and guts out 4 innings.
Some sort of people. I want things amazing to happen early, so that like the word of mouth can bring fans that this is a hell of a World Series we're watching. And there's a part of me that goes, we haven't seen this since 81, the two most storied franchise go at each other, right? First place versus first place, the best two teams. It's
Well,
like coming off of
that was
Texas and Arizona last year.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
I mean,
like,
that was kind of the thing with like the World Baseball Classic, Japan versus USA, right? It was like Otani versus Trout, and
mhm.
but like to what you're saying, if you weren't watching it live and you weren't in on the hype, it was one of these things that was like, oh, this amazing thing happened yesterday, and you missed it. So yeah, if the Dodgers and Yankees come out with like a real banger in game one or two, bring everybody in and enjoy it for a week and a half.
Yeah, and you've got arguably they were talking about how um I think 45, 46, you had Musial versus Williams. 1956, you had Aaron versus Mantle. You've never really had like MVP versus MVP in the
Hmm.
World Series. And this year you'll have Judge versus Otani. You have between Otani, Judge, Soto, Betts, you've got arguably four of the greatest 50 players in the history of the game. You've got the two highest paid pitchers in Yamamoto and Cole. You've got this really beautiful situation where we haven't really gotten to see the stars. We've gotten to see good teams. We've gotten to see, but we haven't seen like we've seen Jordan Alvarez in the World
Hmm.
Series, right? Like he's a star. Don't get me wrong, but he's a DH. Don't get me wrong. Otani's a DH this year, but he's obviously not. He's a lot more than a DH. But these are the stars of the game. We want the stars of the game to shine when our team is not there in the finals. So hopefully it really is. I don't know. They were showing the ratings of the World Series over the last 3-4 years, and it's like 11 million, 9 million, 12 million. Need a nice 25 to 30 million people watching the World Series for
Do you think New York, LA will do that?
in Japan.
Yeah, you're right. Just in
Yeah,
Japan. Yeah.
and I really like I said, if we're able to just put aside our fandom and go enjoy some really, really good baseball, I think that we're gonna get that. I think we're gonna get
Oh, I'm
some.
excited for the World Series. Like I'm not poo-pooing this World Series. I know a lot of people are, and I mean, I get it. Goliath versus Goliath is a tough sell for all the David fans out there, but
Neither
like
team has good pitching. It's like my sluggers versus your sluggers. What could go wrong,
they've got
right?
good pitching. Both teams have good pitching.
Oh, I thought hitting was the only thing that matters in the playoffs.
No one said that. You are
I'm just being a shit.
all right. Last question of mailbag. This is from Dolchimerist, old Dolce, longtime listener of the show. Brent Rooker has finally reached arbitration, starting with 2025, so his payroll cost begins to creep up. I could see Cheapskate Oakland considering offers for him. Rooker doing so well in the spacious Oakland Coliseum is noteworthy, and he did have better stats away from that place. Also, Rooker was the only second player in SEC history to win the Triple Crown, so he has legitimate skill and talent. He's not a fluke. The Twins never gave him a chance to establish himself at the MLB level. The A's did. I could see the former Oakland organization hanging on to Rooker to start 2025 as they begin playing in a ballpark other than Oakland Coliseum, letting Rooker have a big year in a small ballpark to boost his trade value and trading Rooker at the 2025 deadline. Makes a lot of sense. Maybe the trade deadline this year is when Brent Rooker gets moved, unless Oakland is doing something crazy and all of a sudden playing in a smaller AAA ballpark, they come to life, which would be an interesting time for the Sacramento baseball team to make a appearance on on the contending stage. Anything to
Buffalo
add
Blue
on Brent?
Jays. we're
Yeah,
doing that something similar during the COVID season. They were hitting the ball pretty well. So who
they
knows?
were hitting the ball pretty well in 2021. That's right. I love too that all these people are like, "Oh, the poor Oakland team needing to play in a ballpark. This must be so rough on them." But those same people, whenever Toronto brought it up, were like, "Oh, shut up." Yeah, it wasn't so hard. Anything to add on Brent Rooker before we wrap the show up here, gentlemen?
I would just say Matt Chapman averaged 34 home runs a season for the 3 years before he came to Toronto, and then was not a good hitter in Toronto. So, for whatever it's worth. Also, Marcus
They don't
Simeon,
call him
great
Adam's
hitter
glass is
in
half empty
Toronto.
Mac for nothing, right?
No, all I'm saying is Rooker is not a can't miss guy. Like he's not a guy to be like, oh, well, there's 2 years of good track record of hitting here in Oakland. So he's like the solution. Like he's a part of it, but it's
I agree
just
with that. I do think that obviously Josh Donaldson, when he was acquired, was not a sure thing, and he wound up being an MVP. So there's a pretty wide sliding scale where Brent Rooker could
Marcus
go.
Simeon too.
Yeah,
Not a sure thing and came in, changed positions and
yeah.
was amazing. So there's a whole spectrum of outcomes with Rooker. And these are the moves that we'll look back on and unfairly evaluate Atkins on.
2020, baby. 2020.
Look,
Yeah.
Atkins is going to go out and get Rooker this offseason. And then if Rooker works out, we'll say, man, what a move by Atkins. Or he won't
Yeah.
work out. And we'll go, Atkins is such a bozo. Meanwhile, we all wanted him to do it.
Hindsight. It's the most beautiful thing in
Isn't
the
it?
sports world. Yes. Thank you to everyone
It's
who put your comments and questions in. We do really appreciate you on the grounds crew. Feel free to drop your comments below. We'll get to as many of them as we can next week. Take care of yourselves. I'm Scott Belford, Adam Mack. Really thrilled that you could join us for the last few seconds here, a few minutes of the show, Joel. And to all of you on Patreon, thank you. We will have our writing session up as well, if that is something that is interesting to you. So we'll see you all later.